km/h front straight now goes into a modified turn one where they're much harder on the brakes. And I think one of the points that we need to make entering into this Grand Prix, Bill, is the fact that this temperature that is climbing as we sit here and watch the cars getting ready to go out on their formation lap is going to be an issue. This is a track that's hard on tyres, harder now on brakes than it was a year ago. And if you have a look at the side pod Venturi exits on these cars, you'll see that they're vented to flow a lot of air through the radiators and the oil coolers and so forth. And we've already seen a couple of spectacular engine failures this weekend. Mark Webber had one on Friday. His teammate Justin Wilson had some electronic issues and a gearbox problem in the Jaguar, so there could be a reliability problem there. We certainly hope not, for the sake of Mark Webber. And Kimi Räikkönen, this man, also had a very spectacular engine failure. Ideally, it happened just as he was coming in the pit lane, and the thing there was a great cloud of smoke as the Mercedes demise was up in smoke big time, and he came in. But I think you'll find that we'll probably see some guys tonight with reliability issues as Eddie Jordan strolls back. He's a man under a bit of pressure at the moment. There continues to be question marks surrounding that team and its finances and its viability and its pace. They've really struggled this year, and Fisichella, as I said before, is off at the end of this season to join Sauber.
There's speculation, of course, and it's only speculation. It's fairly obvious speculation too when you think about it, that if Sauber does in fact take on Massa to join Fisichella, then Heidfeld would probably go to Jordan, and perhaps Frentzen stay on as a test driver.
Remember that Renault have got spectacularly efficient launch control on their cars. We've seen great evidence of that throughout the season as the cars set off on their warm-up lap. And a new spec engine for Renault this weekend, and further closing the gap between themselves and the other noted high horsepower runners like BMW, Mercedes and Ferrari. This is the slight modification that's been made to turn one. Turn 12 is the other corner that's been changed.
There's a lot of post-qualifying comment, Neil, from the drivers particularly, and even some of the team bosses, about where the drivers are on the grid in terms of the dirty line. And more so than I've noticed in recent rounds, there's been discussion about that. Some of the guys pretty happy not to be on the dirty line, even though they might be fairly high, fairly further down the grid than they wanted to be. And there's a lot of fear, I think, about the first corner after what happened at Hockenheim, and the fact that not only was Schumacher threatened with that dramatic loss in grid position for the following round, which eventually turned into the $50,000 fine, but they also dragged in Barrichello and Räikkönen after some footage and some data that the stewards at the time did not have access to. It was a very interesting appeal for that.
One of the other things that I've found curious about this Grand Prix is that the Friday testing runners have all done well, because this is a track where there's no testing and we're in the middle of the summer testing ban. So both Renault and Jaguar, who get the benefit of the extra 2 hours on a Friday morning, have done very well this weekend. And if you actually go back and study through the championship season so far, you'll find that where they've not had the benefit of testing, that is the greater number of cars in the field, then certainly there's no question that those that get to run on Friday have had some benefit. And Mark Webber has certainly been one of those beneficiaries.
Well, Justin Wilson argued that he would have had a better lap too. He wasn't overly happy with his performance, but feels very good about the car. He was a fair way down the grid compared to Webber in his second run for Jaguar. Alonso was virtually stopping there. I'm not sure what was going on, but they closed up on him very, very quickly. This is a tight track. It looks like a go-kart track from some angles, Neil. Very small and tight.
One of the things that is interesting about it, though, is that you get a great point of view from a spectator's standpoint. It's a great place to watch Formula One cars in action, but the great criticism has been that there's no opportunity to pass. Hopefully that's been partially addressed for the Grand Prix tonight. And we are just about ready as the cars come round to grid up. This is on board with Mark Webber. Can he get the demon start down to turn one?
even less grip for Michael Schumacher. Now, dirty side of the track is the side on the left as we look at it here. You can see Michael Schumacher over on the left-hand side, Räikkönen just alongside him. So watch out for that. Watch out for the cars here on the pit wall side, getting away more slowly than the ones on the outside. We saw it yesterday in the Formula 3000 race. It was quite a big part of the story of that race. Let's see if it is today here.
Long time forming up today too, and the emergency car at the back just taking its position now.
Here we go then, Hungarian Grand Prix, 70 laps, begin now! Cracking start from Alonso, look at that, he's like a missile, he's flying towards the first corner, and you see Ralf Schumacher is behind Webber, he's also behind Rubens Barrichello. That's a very expensive start for Ralf Schumacher. Look at Trulli pushing Ralf Schumacher, and then Kimi Räikkönen's gone past him as well, so Ralf has gone backwards with a vengeance. Montoya challenging, there's Michael Schumacher as well. What an explosive start to the Grand Prix.
Well, as we thought, everybody on the right-hand side, absolutely nowhere. Look at Ralf Schumacher from the front of the grid. He's pointing the wrong way in turn 2, and a Toyota of D'Amata being pushed off the grid. So Alonso leads from Webber, Barrichello, Räikkönen, Trulli and Coulthard. The McLarens really taking something out of their 7th and 9th slots on the left-hand grippy side of the grid.
Well, we thought it might play a part, and it's played a very significant part indeed. Fernando Alonso from pole, what a great getaway for him. He's cool and calm. We saw that in his interview with Martin on the grid. He knows what he's got to do. He led the Malaysian Grand Prix. Here, look at this though. That is the Ferrari of Barrichello coming under some pressure from Kimi Räikkönen, and that's the battle for 3rd place at the moment.
Yes, so the men who started 1st, 3rd, 5th and 7th are running 1, 2, 3 and 4 at the moment. Only Trulli with the fast starting Renault managed to do anything from the right-hand side of the grid. Coulthard up to 6th, Michael Schumacher's 7th. Ralf Schumacher's rejoined back in 19th place. Only D'Amata behind him, who you saw just coming out of the pit lane.
Look at the lead then at the end of the first lap. 1.9 seconds Alonso has over Webber, and he will be smiling because the Jaguar we expect to struggle in the early stages for pace. And so that means that Barrichello, Räikkönen, Trulli, Coulthard and Michael Schumacher, as you can see them there, all have to get past Mark Webber. Stupid job in qualifying yesterday by the young Australian. Let's have a look again at what happened to Ralf Schumacher.
Ralf Schumacher locked his brakes on the inside on the way into turn 2 and just skidded wide, narrowly missing his teammate. A disastrous start for Williams. Montoya back in 8th place. He said, I'm just going to keep myself ahead of Räikkönen and Michael all afternoon. Well, he's already behind them.
Well, Ralf Schumacher went into this Grand Prix 18 points behind his brother in the World Championship. He's down in 18th place at the moment, and a lot of work to do over this Grand Prix. It's hard to imagine him being able to push himself into further contention for the World Championship. So are we going to see one more contestant dropping out? He's not going to give up without a fight, though. You can see carving his way through the field. Jensen, Button and Baumgartner in front of him. And Ted has news for us.
Well, James, there's no sign that Ralf Schumacher's going to come into the pit. He said that the car is okay. He thinks he just picked up some dust, too much dust, when he was going offline through the 1st, 2nd and 3rd corners. Tough luck for Ralf. He's not coming into pit, though.
We saw a Jordan in the background running a very wide. I think that was Fisichella running wide in the fast turn 11. So lots of dramas all the way through. Wilson was just behind him, I think, passed him for 11th place. But Alonso leads from Webber, Barrichello, Räikkönen, Trulli, Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Montoya, Heidfeld and Villeneuve up to P10. We think Wilson is now 11th.
Yes, an awful lot of jostling for position then off the start line. Plenty of overtaking into the 1st and 2nd corners. Things settling down now into a bit of a pattern. You can see Montoya adjusting something there with his right hand as we ride on board with him. He is behind Michael Schumacher now. He's lost the place to Michael Schumacher, so that's interesting.
Yeah, he lost that at the start, James, that one. But Montoya with Alonso with a 3-second lead then over Webber, who's coming under increasing pressure from Barrichello. And Wilson, look at that. That was Barrichello going off the road. Who did he lose a place to there?
No, he was he cut the chicane, so he has to let them. He certainly had to let Webber go through, but he's gone and let Räikkönen through as well, because he got an advantage from cutting the chicane, so he needed to let Webber through, but Räikkönen was right with Webber. Quick thinking by Räikkönen, got right onto Webber's tail. Here it is again.
Okay, so this was Barrichello having a go at Webber, goes way too deep on the brakes, cuts through the chicane, really did need to let Webber blend in and pass him, because he took an advantage by going through that chicane. Yeah, I think you'd have to say gained an advantage going through there, but sadly for him that meant that he also had to let Räikkönen through, and then Trulli decided he'd have a little piece of that as well. So Trulli up to 4th, Barrichello 5th, Coulthard 6th, Michael Schumacher is 7th, Montoya 8th, Heidfeld 9th, Villeneuve is your top 10 then at the moment, all happening behind Alonso.
And you'd have to say of the championship contenders, the one with the biggest smile on his face at the moment, it's got to be Kimi Räikkönen, looking very strong in 3rd place. The McLaren seems to be working quite well in the race. It's been a bit of a handful throughout practice and qualifying, neither driver really topping the timesheets or getting close to the top. But here he is, we ride on board with him now. He's in 3rd place, and his 2 main rivals at the championship are 7th and 8th, Michael Schumacher and Montoya.
Yes, what Barrichello should have done is maintained the position and then let the Jaguar slip through on another part of the racetrack, is what he should have done, and what he would do next time, no doubt. Look at this train of cars then behind Webber. Alonso is 7.3 seconds down the road, as they've all been squabbling with each other. Alonso just romping away.
Phenomenal performance from the young Spaniard, aiming to become the youngest winner ever. Look at this though, Kimi Räikkönen has got a thing or two to say about that. He intends to try and win this race this afternoon. 9 points behind Michael Schumacher going into this Grand Prix. A win, 10 points today, very important for Kimi Räikkönen. Just has to dispatch this Jaguar of Mark Webber in front of him. You can see now Webber is beginning to struggle on those tyres as we expected, and Räikkönen may well have a crack at him down the straight if he can get the speed out of the last corner. This is the new revised first corner then, designed to encourage overtaking, but Räikkönen is not close enough at the moment.
Certainly isn't. Began to have a look, but was nowhere near close enough. Barrichello beginning to come back at Trulli, and behind him Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Montoya. Montoya amazingly under big pressure from Heidfeld in the Sauber. Heidfeld probably on less fuel, 11th on the grid. A great run from Heidfeld, but probably with less fuel on board, and that is the Toyota of D'Amata coming through the field. He was 20th and takes over 19th from Chiesa. Baumgartner, the new boy, 18th at the moment. Jenson Button down in 17th.
Yep, and the other Brit in the Grand Prix, Justin Wilson, in the 2nd Jaguar, is down in 12th place at the moment. That's where he started the Grand Prix from, so he's not changed. Meanwhile, teammate Webber coming under intense pressure now from Kimi Räikkönen. It's only a matter of time. And just to give you an indication of where we are, Alonso here, you can see, clear air. He's lapping in the low 1:25s, watched by Flavio Briatore. Webber is holding a train up in the high 1:27s.
And look at this, watch the left-hand side of the grid, just steaming off down to turn 1. Only Trulli on the right got anywhere near. There is the cloud of dust. It's like a fog for those on the back of the grid as they head all to fight over the same piece of tarmac down into turn 1. Alonso now leading by 10.2 seconds. He's lapping 3 seconds faster than anybody else because Webber is now holding them up. The gap is 12 seconds now at the end of the next lap. And look at the scrabble as if we get another replay. And once again, supreme driving skills. Somehow they all managed not to trip over each other. Pretty tight there, wasn't it, for 3rd, 4th, 5th? And that's where the Williams started getting into trouble. They're now side by side. Ralph is behind his brother, and we cut back into turn 1. There's how tight it was for them all. And the Williams, and both Williams getting stuck on the outside of 1. And at some point, Ralph would outbrake himself into 2 and oh so nearly wipe his teammate out.
And that was exactly, you saw just right there where Michael Schumacher got past Montoya, who had the line. He was ahead into the first corner, but side by side with his teammate, Michael Schumacher was able to nip in front of him, and that's pretty important for the title race. These two separated by 6 points. We ride with Montoya down in 8th place now. Michael Schumacher in front of us and Coulthard in front of him.
Well, we're on lap 6. This is Ralf Schumacher fighting his way back through the field. He's already up to 13th. Now that's 12th then. He's just taken Panis through, buddy.
He's got his head on today, his overtaking head, no question, but like Rubens Barrichello had at Silverstone. Ralf Schumacher, well worth watching then. We're on board with him, and in front of us is Justin Wilson in 12th place. There's Jacques Villeneuve in 11th, and Wilson's 11th, I beg your pardon. Jacques Villeneuve is 10th. So Ralf really coming through the field quickly. This is the scrap at the front, though, between Montoya, right on the back of Michael Schumacher, as Ralf Schumacher has a look at Justin Wilson.
Yes, and the Williams, as we've come to expect, have got tremendous straight line speed. Just checking the data on the computer here, so if Ralph gets anywhere near the slipstream of Wilson, he'll be through in a flash. But on this part of the racetrack, it's actually quite difficult. One corner very much leads to another through here. Wilson, Justin said to me this morning, I need a strong race today. You know, he got outpaced for qualifying yesterday by a spectacular effort from Mark Webber in the other Jaguar, but Justin needs a solid race to give himself a chance of maintaining that Jaguar drive. Alonso leads by 13.8 seconds from Mark Webber. It's another Flavio Briatore stable driver, isn't it? They're 1 and 2 at the moment, and Trulli's yet another in 4th place. So Flavio's having the afternoon of his season for sure.
Certainly is. You can see Ralf Schumacher just working the steering wheel there, keeping the car pointing in the right direction. Look at this guy though, Fernando Alonso. New fastest lap for him on lap 7. The last 2 have been fastest laps, as you'd expect, as the fuel burns off and the tyres begin to settle down. He's beginning to put in some very fast laps. He's 15.5 seconds ahead. He was 15.5 seconds ahead at the end of the last lap. He is around about the same now. So yeah, he's doing a great job up front. And this is Ralf Schumacher on board again. Alonso leads then from Webber 2nd, Räikkönen 3rd, Trulli 4th, 5th is Barrichello, 6th David Coulthard, 7th Michael Schumacher, and 8th Juan Montoya. 20 seconds now behind Alonso.
Well, it turned out that round 13 of the championship was unlucky for Ralf Schumacher. As you look, one of the Jordans leaving the circuit here at the Hungaroring.
And that's Fisichella running wide, got onto the dusty part of the circuit, and there's plenty of that dust and dirt out there and a lot of marbles from the tyre build-up across the course of the weekend. Alonso is just blazing at the moment, Billy. He's just done the fastest Sector 2 lap time and has recorded the fastest lap of the race so far in a 1:23.8, but Webber is hanging on. 25.5 for his last lap, and obviously he's the cork in the bottle a little bit at the moment. He's got a bit of a queue behind, but Räikkönen 24.8 on his last lap, 25.5 for Trulli, 25.4 for Barrichello, 25.9 for Coulthard. Michael is 7th, but what about the scramble at that start? I mean, all the qualifying form just about went out the window in the first 5 or 10 seconds, Billy.
Ralph at the moment is unlocking all of that. He got past Justin Wilson, Webber's teammate, who was looking very dodgy on some of the onboard shots. The car not appearing to handle very well at all.
Speaking of dodgy, I'm wondering whether or not D'Amata, I'm assuming he stalled that car on the grid. They then pushed it behind the pit wall and then it re-emerged. If the car had to be started within the pit lane, then I don't believe you can do that just looking at the rules, but perhaps it was running and it was some other software glitch and he couldn't get a gear or get it out of launch control mode, whatever. But he's rejoined the Grand Prix. He's at the back of the pack, but there's a question mark over him at the moment.
Alonso getting a lot of assistance from Mark Webber here. He's putting some incredible time into the field, but a long way to go.
This is lap 10 of the 70-lap Hungarian Grand Prix from Budapest. And Fernando Alonso now 17.4 seconds ahead of the second-place man, Mark Webber, in the Jaguar, who is holding up the cars behind him. Räikkönen, Trulli, Barrichello, Coulthard, Michael Schumacher and Montoya, all within a handful of seconds of Mark Webber. A big train then behind P2. And look at Jacques Villeneuve having a go down the inside of Nick Heidfeld into turn 1. Nice move by Jacques Villeneuve. Ralf Schumacher continuing to make progress. He is just behind this scrap. He passed Justin Wilson just a second ago, and
that's Button on Frentzen, isn't it?
Beg your pardon.
Yeah, Button on Frentzen. What we had is both VARs following both Saubers, but that's for 16th place. And just ahead of them then is Jos Verstappen doing a solid job this afternoon. Fisichella's in front of him, who's been off the road a couple of times already. Heidfeld up in 9th in the sister Sauber. There's about 10 seconds covering 10 drivers from Webber backwards, and that's why I think it's really going to play into Ralf Schumacher's hands and save his afternoon to a certain extent, because he can come quite quickly up with the main pack and hope to make some ground up during the 2 or probably even 3 pit stops this afternoon. And we're, what, James, do you think, 3-4 laps away now from the first of the 3 stoppers coming in.
Yeah, this is lap 11. They were predicting the early guys would come in 13, 15, something like that. We expect the front runners to be coming in between laps 17 and 20. Let's see whether Fernando Alonso was running light to get that pole position, or whether, like in Malaysia, he's carrying quite a significant amount of fuel. He's certainly going very quick at the moment. Fastest first sector again for him, lapping in the low 1-minute 23s. Webber and the rest are lapping in the mid to high 1-minute 24s. So it's all playing very nicely into Alonso's hands here.
Well, you can't accuse Webber of holding the pack up any longer. He's now down into the low 1-minute 24s. Clearly the car beginning to work then. And there's a big gap now. Truly he's fallen 2 seconds away from Räikkönen, who is still hustling Webber. And now they're beginning to stretch out a little bit. This will be Ralf Schumacher then passing Villeneuve for P10, providing he gets through. And he does, as he has done easily. Past Wilson going in there. And he is very, very brave. That's a different replay altogether of the BAR of Button passing Verstappen.
Just behind them is Zolt Baumgartner. We saw him a minute ago. Here goes Jenson Button then on Verstappen. And this is what we were talking about, the lunge down the inside. So many people have done it. It's been clearing the dust away from the inside line. It's not had a chance to get dirty down there because we've had passing into it right from the start of this Grand Prix. So that's good news for the rest of the race.
Well, you have to say the changes into turn 1 have generated some overtaking then, no doubt about it. Fair dues for those track changes in that respect. It's certainly generated an opportunity. Mind you, we have seen some spectacular moves down into the old turn 1. Nigel Mansell pulling some incredible overtaking manoeuvres down into there. One I remember clearly on Ayrton Senna. But Alonso now 19.8 seconds in the lead. It almost doesn't matter what strategy he's on, James. He's virtually got a pit stop in his pocket spare now with that kind of lead.
Yeah, more or less. You need 25 seconds here to make a pit stop, come back out again. And he's very close to that already. Certainly by the time he comes in for his pit stop, there's a good chance he might actually come back out again in front. Depending on how much fuel the Jaguar of Webber is carrying, all that will be played out in the near future. This is lap 12. Alonso, 20 seconds now, clear of Webber. Räikkönen third, right behind Webber. Fourth is Trulli, fifth Barrichello, sixth still Coulthard, seventh Michael Schumacher, eighth Montoya, ninth Heidfeld, 10th Ralf Schumacher.
So Räikkönen, the main man in the championship battle at the moment, in third place. But we're expecting Justin Wilson in this lap for Jaguar. He's now back to 12th again after Ralf Schumacher's breeze through there up to P10. And Ralf is having a spectacular drive from last through to 10th at the moment. And certainly you can't discount him for a podium later on this afternoon. And there then quite a lot of teams in the pit lane, James. We can see Renault, we can see Jaguar, Minardi, and maybe even Jordan, I think I saw in there.
Well, let's wait and see which of the two Renaults it's going to be. Is it going to be Fernando Alonso, or is it going to be Jarno Trulli? If it's Alonso, it's quite early, but we will see. Certainly there you can see the Jaguar pit crew ready as well. A tense time in the Grand Prix for everybody. First man in then is Justin Wilson.
Didn't change the front tyres then for Wilson. Fuel on and just keeps it going, and away he goes. In comes the Minardi of Verstappen too, and the Renault boys are down there. Which one will it be? They're expecting one of their drivers to come in, and it is Alonso taking to a rather dusty pit lane.
Well, there you have it then, lap 13. That's very early indeed for Alonso. The strategy was, as we thought perhaps earlier in the weekend, we've got nothing to lose. They're fourth place in the championship. Let's stick the car on pole and let's see if we can go out and win it. And in fact, with a 21-second advantage, he isn't going to come back out quite in front of Mark Webber. But let's see how much fuel he puts in the car. That'll tell us what his strategy is for the rest of the day. Anything around 8 or 9 seconds. And that looks like 3 stops to me.
Yeah, Webber's in the pits too. They've short-fueled him to try to get him out, but he's going to be just nip and tuck in amongst quite a lot of cars. He's going to filter back in behind Kimi Räikkönen, who now leads the Grand Prix. So he did effectively almost have a pit stop in his pocket. There then is Mark Webber, and his front tyres, they put scrub tyres on if they change them at all. I didn't actually see that, but I'm told they did put some highly scrubbed tyres on. So Alonso exits so nearly stalled the engine. Räikkönen leads then.
And do you think that little moment of stalling, the hesitation, was enough to lose in the lead? Because it was very marginal when he rejoined, wasn't it?
Yeah, it cost him what, second and a half. I think there wasn't enough to put him right out front, but it was certainly enough to put him a good distance behind Räikkönen. But surely Räikkönen will pit. Let's see, we're on lap 14. Räikkönen's going to be out of his face in 3-4 laps latest anyway, I would imagine. And at the moment, Räikkönen running low on fuel. He's due for a pit stop sometime soon. And of course, Alonso heavy on fuel, having just stopped, albeit just with 6.2 seconds. So very short fill there. Ted is down at Williams.
Yeah, Martin, Juan Pablo Montoya's engineers have got a little dilemma on their hands because he's losing so much time behind all these cars that are running a little heavier than him, especially David Coulthard. Does he come in now and try to get clean air and a gap, or does he just save fuel, lean out the engine and try and extend that first stint? It's a difficult one. They're thinking about it now.
We'll see how that one works out. We're on board with Montoya briefly. He is very close behind his main championship contender. They're running 6th and 7th now because of Webber's pit stop. Webber filtered back in. He hasn't come through yet. And that then is Ralf Schumacher taking over 8th place from Nick Heidfeld.
And that means he's right behind Juan Montoya on the road. Look at that. Having spun out and rejoined last, Ralf Schumacher has got himself back up into the battle between his teammate Juan Montoya and Michael Schumacher. That's now the battle for 6th place after the rounds of pit stops. Fisichella comes in. Currently the order then, Räikkönen, Alonso, Trulli, Barrichello, Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Montoya, but it's all changing at the moment through this round of pit stops. And just looking at the charts, as you can see, Justin Wilson there out on track. We expect Alonso to come back in for his second stop of the afternoon around about lap 30 or 31. So he's the first of the front runners to show his hand here this afternoon.
And we have Villeneuve, what looks like in the pit lane, grinding to a halt. He's moving out to the edge of the fast lane in the hope of not getting in anybody's way. It's a very narrow pit lane, a relatively narrow pit lane, just a 2-laner here in Hungary. There is a car coming in the background. It's Räikkönen pitting, so they've got a bit of time because Räikkönen will stop earlier. Trulli pits as well from what was 3rd place. Alonso retakes the lead. Here then is Jarno Trulli, and we're on board as he moves. He's passing Räikkönen. Räikkönen's car bounces down, that's no problem, and away he goes with a solid 7-second stop and a little bit more fuel. That's playing quite nicely for Räikkönen. Remember, main championship contenders Montoya and Schumacher, Michael, behind him, solidly behind him.
Yep, solidly behind him, yet to make their stops. But remember that Fernando Alonso had a 20-second advantage over Kimi Räikkönen before he made his pit stop, and that will undoubtedly prove significant later on. Mark Webber is in 11th place at the moment, having made his pit stop. He's got to hope that the guys in front are going to pit soon, but certainly his first pit stop has cost him quite dearly. It's certainly got Räikkönen in front of him and Jarno Trulli as well as overtaken him.
Pivotal moment of the Grand Prix then. Barrichello's on a very hot lap. They were running, remember, 10 cars covered by less than 10 seconds, and now is when they can make, now is when they're going to leapfrog. A hot lap while you're contenders in the pits, a hot in lap, a good pit stop and a hot out lap, and you can leapfrog 2 or 3 cars this afternoon. So Barrichello really flying. So is Coulthard back in 5th. They're 3rd and 5th at the moment, and now it must be Rubens then that's coming into the pit lane. Indeed it is. Will it pay off for him? Will he have made up a place? Ferrari are very early in the pit lane. Look at the gap between them and all the rest of the team. A lovely clear zone for them to get their work done this afternoon.
Certainly is. The mechanics go to work. Here comes Montoya. Ted.
Here he is. He's been complaining about the balance of the car. They're taking out a bit less front downforce on the wing. There he goes. He's racing Michael Schumacher. Remember, of course, he has to finish at least 2 points or more ahead of him. Good stop, though.
But 2 good stops there, I would have said. And where do they go back into? Well, clearly Barrichello didn't clear Trulli. And that'll be Button. Villeneuve's out at the moment with hydraulic problems. So Button has been lapped in that respect, and
he's not been lapped, he just hasn't made his pit stop yet. He's got a stop to make, so yes. That's why he will come in any time now, and then of course he'll drop from the scene. Louise is with Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, very disappointed Jacques Villeneuve, understandably, with that loss of hydraulic pressure. Gutting for you, Jacques, because you made a fantastic start.
Yeah, it went really good. Went really good at the start. We knew that our setup was much better for the race. So after the good start, it was looking good for us. But you know, whenever it looks good for us, then something will happen to make it into a bad weekend, and it's just a continuation of the same season, basically.
Bad luck, Jacques.
Bad luck, very much so. He gained 4 places on the start, was running pretty well. And then Michael Schumacher pits then for his first scheduled stop of the afternoon at the end of lap 18.
And so does Ralf Schumacher right behind him. You'll see the Williams will go past on the left. There he is. He goes past. Michael Schumacher's in his pit box, waiting for Ralf Schumacher to come to stop. These two racing for position, don't forget. So it's critical that Michael Schumacher came out in front. It looks like he's going to rejoin in front. Tiny stop. Fuel hose comes off the Williams. Slightly slower away for Ralf. Very slow away for Ralf. Very, very slow away for Ralf. And that cost him a bit of time. Speed limiter on. And you can see Heidfeld going back as well into the fray. He was behind those two coming into the pits. So no change between them through the first round of pit stops. But very nearly saw some time lost there for Ralf Schumacher.
Getting away has been a problem all afternoon for Ralf Schumacher. Heidfeld's hanging on now, isn't he? He really is hanging on, Nick Heidfeld, in the thick of the action. But when it all settles down, we'll see the winners and losers. But at the moment, Coulthard up in second has not pitted. He's the only one of the front runners not to pit at this time. Ted.
Well, Marta, I'll tell you what happened there. Ralf took his own cue to leave, which was wrong. That was a mistake. His lollipop man, Carl Gaydon, saw that Michael Schumacher was coming down the pit lane and quite rightly held Ralf in his box so that Michael could pass. That's the right thing to do, otherwise they would have collided. Ralf saw what was happening, wanted to get away by himself and just went for it. But Carl kept the lollipop down, and they had to wait until Michael was passed until he went. But that was the right thing to do from the Williams team.
Yeah, he'll wonder if he was a bit overcautious there. Ralf giving it, what is going on, let me go. I mean, you don't want them running into each other, that's the end of your race, but you have to say, you wonder if that was a touch too cautious.
Yeah, it did look it. Michael Schumacher was almost past, and again, he was travelling at quite a speed. Coulthard then, a longish stop. He switched to a 2-stop first of anybody in the German Grand Prix, and it really paid off for him. He came through to second place, and it looks like Ron Dennis and the crew at McLaren have done the same thing again here. They put him on it, and he feeds back in behind Michael Schumacher, but in front of Ralf Schumacher.
But behind Montoya as well, I believe. Montoya is ahead of Michael Schumacher now after the pit stops, and that long stop there for David Coulthard has definitely put him out of position on the racetrack by a couple of places. But has he saved a stop later on in the afternoon?
Undoubtedly, and he's in the pound seats really, because he's racing with the big guys in the same patch as them. He's got Montoya and Michael Schumacher in front of him. He's got Ralf Schumacher behind him, and he's got a lot more fuel on board than either of them.
Well, he's on lap 19 of a 70-lap race, so he's got to go. He's got to stretch it out quite a long way. It's quite a heavy penalty. It's 0.33 of a second per 10 kilograms of fuel around here. So we'll wait and see. I'm not absolutely convinced David will make it on a 2-stopper, but we'll find out. It certainly was a long field, wasn't it?
Undoubtedly it was. This is lap 20 then of the Hungarian Grand Prix. You can see that all of the front runners now have made their stops. That's the order. Alonso, Räikkönen, Webber. He lost a place then, Mark Webber, in the round of pit stops. Coulthard as well has dropped down after his round of pit stops. Plenty more action to come from here.
Hungarian Grand Prix disaster for Rubens Barrichello. This happened just moments ago. A puzzled Ferrari camp. Neil, this is a most unusual one. The left rear looked like it just broke away under brakes.
Yeah, obviously some kind of a major rear suspension failure for Rubens going into, I think it was turn 1, Billy, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll get some more detail on that as Baumgartner comes in for his first ever stop. The good news is that Rubens is okay. The speed that he closed on that wall was really quite frightening. He was running in position 6. This has happened on lap 19. And the good news is he's walked away. I'd be very curious to have a look at that again to see just in more detail what may have happened. And will this prompt a safety car? Here it comes again. Let's focus on the rear of the car. Left rear, well, that's just a complete left rear suspension failure. It's plucked the axle and drive shaft out in one hit, and it's fired him straight into the tyre wall. It's interesting that in that part of the circuit there's no gravel. They're actually on asphalt there, and Rubens tosses out the steering wheel in disgust. Whoa, look at that shot. Bits flying everywhere. And the fact that it yanked so much stuff with it, how lethal, how dangerous is that? It doesn't look to me like it was actually just a wheel coming off as such. It's a complete failure of the left rear suspension, puzzling the Ferrari people as much as Rubens and everybody else watching these television pictures around the world at the moment. Goodness me. Now the car's been removed, so I don't think we're going to have a safety car situation. We'll go back to the Hungaroring. It's lap 20. Let's join ITV.
Lap 22 of this 70-lap Hungarian Grand Prix. And look at this, Rubens Barrichello has gone off and slammed into the barriers very hard.
As indeed, that's down at turn 1. It's a pretty thin runoff area down there, and he's had a catastrophic failure of the left rear suspension and gone straight on at turn 1 with an errant left rear wheel bouncing down the racetrack. We're going to see a replay of it now. This has just happened, and off he goes straight into the tyre barrier. Luckily, he hits head on, which is where the nose does its best work, and the front suspension, taking some of the energy too, rebounds back out, and they've managed to begin to clear that away under double waved yellows rather than a safety car. And look at that left rear wheel heading off for its own race, and Rubens going straight towards the tyre barrier. Where did that wheel end up?
Well, there's no crowd down there, but that cameraman was pretty close to it. Two significant things to come out of that incident. Number one, we didn't have a safety car, and that's great news for Fernando Alonso, because he was 23.7 seconds up the road from Kimi Räikkönen, and a safety car would have seriously compromised his afternoon, as you can imagine. We ride on board with Montoya here behind Jarno Trulli. This is the battle for 4th place. The second significant thing is a question, Martin. If you were Ross Brawn now, technical director of Ferrari, and you'd just seen a catastrophic and hard to explain left rear suspension failure on Rubens Barrichello's car, given the championship situation with Michael Schumacher in 6th place right behind Montoya, what would you do? Would you want to call in Michael Schumacher? Is there a danger to him that the same thing could happen? We have seen it before in the past.
Yeah, we have seen it before. It'll be questions asked. Has Rubens tagged anybody? Certainly in those first 2 corners, it was getting very frantic, wasn't it? But maybe they'll know the life. They'll go straight to computer and know exactly all the life, all the kilometers of the pieces on the back of that car. They will be able to analyse a certain number of things that took place as Montoya shapes up for 4th place man Trulli. We need to recap now. All the pit stops have finished. Frentzen, the last man, is just pitting now from 9th place. He's gone a long way in the Grand Prix, but Alonso now leads by 24 seconds from Räikkönen. They're lapping now similar pace. So Räikkönen leapfrogged Webber in all of that. Webber's 8 seconds behind Räikkönen in 3rd. Trulli maintained 4th, but he's under big pressure from Montoya, who won very well in the pit stop. There's Frentzen leaving. Montoya cleared both Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard in the pit stops. He's 5th, Michael Schumacher's 6th, and Ralf Schumacher's now passed Coulthard, who for 7th, Coulthard 8th. And you have to say, looking at David's pace, maybe they have filled him heavily to avoid another, to save a stop, put him onto a 2-stopper, James.
Certainly looks like it. Coulthard just 3.4 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher in front of him at the moment. And yeah, Montoya, the big winner from the first round of pit stops, was down in 8th place in the early stages of this Grand Prix after a pretty poor start. Got caught up in the incident involving Ralf Schumacher, lost out to Michael Schumacher, and went from 4th to 8th in the early exchanges. But he's back up into 5th place now, and shortly hoping to make that 4th if he can just find a way past Jarno Trulli.
47 laps to go, James. There's so much to happen this afternoon yet as Montoya shapes up for a half-hearted look down the inside of the Renault of Trulli, but it's coming back in quite nicely at the moment. But you're right, there'll be some frantic thought going on the Ferrari pit wall about what do we do. That was a huge failure, and of course top speed, that's when the loadings are highest, but it wasn't in a traction area, was it? That's unusual in that respect. It was a failure at just at high speed with high downforce. Normally that sort of thing breaks on a bumpy part or in a heavy traction area.
Well, we saw Ralph Furman's Jordan, didn't we, at the Brazilian Grand Prix? Do you recall that, when he had a suspension failure on the main straight and unfortunately tagged one of the Toyotas there, went flying off the track? Now, had he made contact before that happened with somebody else?
Apparently not. I wondered at the time, but apparently hadn't. But of course, that's under braking. It's another critical area where suspension tends to fail. But I don't think Rubens was in the braking area at that time. So it was a pure failure in a sort of relatively steady state, albeit under heavy load with a high downforce.
Trying to make his way through the security gates here, just getting explanation from the photographers there as to how it's done. It's a bit of a maze if you're not used to it. Here it goes again.
Right, well, he was just into the beginning of the braking zone then, so he's just touched the brake pedal, and that, yeah, that is more, it's easier to explain, that failure. He obviously had just touched the brakes.
When you say it's easy to explain, obviously there was more load suddenly with the brakes coming on, but the reason why it broke is no clear to us, is it? Very strange incident indeed, and certainly we can't recall seeing anything quite like that for a while. Bit of debris on the track, as you can see, in the place where it happened, right down into turn 1. High-speed area as well, coming down for about 185 miles an hour, down to the 75-mile-an-hour turn 1. So a big stop there into that corner. And that's the order on lap 25, and those are the margins, the gaps, as you can see, 15 seconds between second place and Juan Montoya. Michael Schumacher just a couple of seconds behind him. Quick check on the Brits for you. Justin Wilson is up to 11th place. He's gained 1 position. Jenson Button is 12th in the BAR. And well, David Coulthard, as we've seen, is 8th, last of the points-paying positions at the moment.
Well, if Coulthard is on a 2-stopper now, he's looking pretty handy. He's lapping nicely now. He's got up to speed. And this then must be D'Amata coming back past Fisichella. It doesn't look that way on the computer, and you wonder how he's 5 places behind him on the computer. But anyway, that's what they're showing us on the caption, and we'll have to wait and see. Alonso leads by 27.9 seconds from Räikkönen now. Webber third still, truly under increasing pressure from Montoya, and Michael Schumacher at a watching distance under increasing pressure from Ralf Schumacher.
There you can see Rubens Barrichello just walking down the steps, giving an interview to the Italian television, trying to find some sort of explanation for what happened. What's going through the mind of this man? Michael Schumacher, 5 times a world champion. He's had such a fantastic career over such a long time, got so much experience, but he will be wanting to know very urgently what was the cause of Rubens Barrichello's suspension failure, and is there any question that he should park his car out of fear? You can't imagine him wanting to do that with the World Championship so finely balanced. It's a very delicate moment, this, for Schumacher and Ferrari.
Don't know any driver that wouldn't carry on driving and just take the risk, to be honest. I mean, the cars are so safe, and you would take the chance. That's what you're out there for. It's a chance when you step over the side of the cockpit, and unless they were expecting that kind of problem, or they absolutely understand with the championship at stake, you just get out and keep driving it. There then is Coulthard just slipping back, but managing to maintain his pace in 8th. If we're right, and he's saved a pit stop, he's in good shape there. At the moment, Räikkönen has just taken a second out of Alonso's lead. Alonso may well be in traffic, but still he's 27 seconds clear.
There you can see Trulli in 4th place, Montoya just behind him. Trulli has an extra 10 horsepower under his foot this weekend, an upgrade on the engine from Renault, but he's still giving away quite a lot in straight line speed to the BMW Williams, but it seems Montoya just can't get quite close enough to him to do anything about it. Meanwhile, the race leader is now starting to lap people through the traffic, you can see, and we have news from Ferrari.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Rubens Barrichello to come back. But in the meantime, I've just had a word with Luca Collegiani, the Ferrari press officer. Obviously, they've checked all the telemetry, and they say there is nothing to indicate that there will be any problem with Michael's car. So they're quite happy for him to stay out there.
Well, that's good. They've got a lot of data on the pit wall, and there'll be nothing, absolutely nothing Rubens can tell him when he gets back. Because that's the things, the rear suspension's, you know, 2 meters away from you or something, and you can't feel anything with that amount of load in the car. The car doesn't move around that much from a driver perspective, and there's nothing he can contribute. It's all about the data that's being sent back.
Here's Ralf Schumacher on board with him, just for the back of Michael Schumacher. Patrick Head there discussing tactics with Sam Michael, the chief operations engineer at Williams, a young guy who's gone into the team that joined from Jordan a couple of years back and has had quite a bit of success since. and he's as competitive as individual as you're ever likely to meet. Every bit as competitive as any of the drivers out on track. As you can see, Webber running a little wide whilst they're putting a lap on Baumgartner. Webber still running in third place. Haven't seen him much really since the pit stops, but he's definitely still there and he's still going strongly.
He is, and he's 6.8 seconds ahead of Trulli. So Mark Webber in a genuine and honest third place. He certainly was backing them up in the beginning, but now he's holding his own. He's lapping about the same speed. In fact, he's lapping quicker than Trulli, Montoya, Michael Schumacher behind him. But now it's Trulli that's got a little bit of a snake behind him.
Well, we've seen it once or twice before. It's an interesting conundrum with Jarno Trulli. You know, does he drift off the pace at certain times in the race? Certainly David Coulthard and one or two other drivers have accused him of that in the past. Mark Webber would appear to have put more fuel into the Jaguar at his first pit stop than did Jarno Trulli, and so Webber is going at a nice old clip, and Trulli at the moment does seem to be falling into the clutches of Montoya, Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher, and they will all want to get past him. Here's the race leader though, Fernando Alonso, 26.5 seconds ahead of Kimi Räikkönen, and 42 laps to go in this 70-lap Grand Prix. He's not even halfway yet towards becoming the youngest Grand Prix driver ever.
The sole remaining Ferrari then, just a quick shot over the rear wing of Michael Schumacher. Two retirees then, Barrichello and Villeneuve, and Louise with the Rubens Barrichello.
Rubens, 3 wheels on your wagon, not a lot you could do about that, was there?
I was a passenger. It was, I think it was a suspension failure, because some photographer showed me that when I brake, so the left rear suspension went, and I lost the brakes. I lost completely everything. So the only thing I had a chance was to pray, because it was going to be a big one, and you know, thanks God I'm walking and I'm okay.
Do you have any idea what caused it? Did you touch anybody or hit a curb hard earlier on?
No, nothing that I can recall. I mean, it was no feelings that anything was different, anything like this.
Glad to see him in one piece. Thanks, Rubens.
Well, good news that he is in one piece, and pretty much as we thought. On the rear suspension there, quite while we're seeing a replay of the start. I'm not sure at this stage of the Grand Prix, but that's what they're showing us at the moment. It was pretty busy, but that was 29 laps ago now, and on board with Michael Schumacher there. He's got a Sauber on the outside. There are the two Williams, all out at sea on the outside, and that certainly compromised their early part of the Grand Prix, and they're still trying to recover. Montoya, who started 4th, runs 5th. Ralf Schumacher, who started 2nd, runs P7 at the moment.
For those of you just joining us, Giancarlo Fisichella there retiring from the Grand Prix. Where the incident with the Williams, as you can see, they're carving through the field, and Montoya having a go at Jarno Trulli. Didn't come off for him this time, but look at this, Michael Schumacher now hassling Ralf Schumacher. Well, he's gone down, he's gone back behind Ralf Schumacher.
Yeah, that's a pass. Ralf in the melee. Ralf passed Michael. That's a crucial move for the afternoon as well, isn't it? So that puts Michael Schumacher now 5 places behind Räikkönen, and more places again behind, or places behind Montoya too. So it's not working well for Ferrari this afternoon. Ralf Schumacher continues his relentless drive through the field after that spin in turn 2 of the Grand Prix, and your leader Alonso is in the pit for his 2nd stop of the afternoon, again quite early,
but this one he should be able to get out in front of Kimi Räikkönen. He had a 26.6 second advantage. Renault are sticking with the 3-stop strategy, and he should comfortably come out ahead of Räikkönen. We'll see the McLaren coming up behind him sometime shortly. He's comfortably ahead of him, isn't he? Absolutely. So the tactics are working so far for the Renault team.
Räikkönen has just put in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, 23 hours. Giancarlo Fisichella wanders back to the pit, and there it looks like engine failure on the exit of turn 3 for Fisichella. Not too far to walk then. Alonso rejoins the race in the lead of the Grand Prix, and it's working beautifully for Renault.
Fisichella walking in there. News coming through yesterday evening that he has signed for Sauber for next year, 2-year contract, as we look again at the pass of Ralf Schumacher on Michael.
I think the Ralf really caught Michael unawares there. Michael would have been watching the very close action between Montoya's failed overtake on Trulli, and while he was watching that with a Jordan in the middle for good measure, Ralf just pounced on his favourite place down into turn 1.
It's not really like Michael, that, is it? To be taken to be so vulnerable.
I think he got caught. I really think he got caught unawares there, because his attention would have been, certainly mine would have been going in there. You've been watching, you've been thinking, okay, those two are going to touch. If they touch, what am I going to do? And suddenly your brother pops up alongside you.
Yes, he would also, of course, been watching the battle between Montoya and Trulli, and they were certainly going very, very close together. Ted has some news for us.
Well, James, Jarno Trulli's due into the pits in about a lap and a half's time, but Montoya really needs to try and pass him before that as soon as possible, really, because Michael has 6 or 7 laps worth of fuel extra and can go longer than Montoya. And Montoya really needs to maximise that advantage, even though having Ralph in the way as acts as spoiler will certainly help him.
Certainly will help him, as Mark Webber comes into the pits from 3rd place. And this second round of pit stops is likely to prove just as influential on the order as the first round did. We saw quite a bit of jumbling around in the first round of pit stops. Let's see how Webber handles this one, as Montoya and Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher all sweep through. So Webber has dropped down behind them. Fuelman diving out of the way, dust flying everywhere, and 7.7 seconds later, Mark Webber rejoins the Grand Prix. There he is, and that is the Sauber of Nick Heidfeld, who was in 9th place. So he'll tuck in. He'll have been moved up, Heidfeld into 8th place, and Webber slots into 9th.
Yes, indeed. Watching Coulthard down in 8th, he's doing a 27.0 now, so a very slow lap there for David Coulthard for some reason. Whether he's moving through traffic or what, we don't know. The moment Alonso leading Räikkönen by 1.9 seconds, but of course he's already had his second stop, as has Webber now, and so too has Justin Wilson and Verstappen. So a solid 3 stoppers this afternoon, and they're not deviating at all.
Well, one of the pieces of information in the jigsaw puzzle that we don't have is how long Kimi Räikkönen's stop was, and that could prove quite important, really, in the next few laps, because he's in 2nd place at the moment, 1.8 seconds behind. As diving into the pits, you can see, is, I think, the Renault of Jarno Trulli. Indeed it is.
Now watch these Williams go. Now they've really got to go some. They've got clear air in front of them. This is the chance for them to recover their afternoon. They've been, I think, held up slightly behind Jarno Trulli. The wheelman there ready to follow the wheelman in to speed up. Renault, as Benetton as they were, Tolman before that, have always been good on their stop, and another clean and crisp one as Trulli goes out of the pits. But what's his outlap going to look like, and how fast can the Williams go now? We'll keep an eye on them.
Here he comes out of the pits, and let's keep an eye on the Williams, as you say, Martin. They're 3rd and 4th now. Juan Montoya 3rd, Ralf Schumacher 4th. Michael Schumacher is in 5th place, 7/10 of a second behind his brother, and that really is a very interesting scrap there between those 3 drivers. There's Flavio Briatore, the team principal. He'll have had an eye on Jarno Trulli, but he will be so excited about what Fernando Alonso is doing in the other car. He's leading this Grand Prix, as he has done pretty much throughout. And another stupendous performance by the Spaniard.
Räikkönen in the pits. Here he is, 2nd place man, and he was 1.8 seconds behind. Ted, take it away.
If McLaren do this really well, they can get him out in front of Montoya. That's going to be absolutely crucial. There's no problems with the stop so far. Räikkönen's stop going well. That's quite a lot of fuel in there, though, isn't it?
No, I think there's still pretty much, we're not even halfway in the Grand Prix, so that's pretty solid 3-stop refueling there. And does he get out in front of the 2 Williams? He certainly isn't going to do one of them. He might squeeze in between the pair of them, and he doesn't make it.
He makes it in front of Michael Schumacher, but he doesn't make it in front of Ralph. And you see the way Ralph came across there. That was a very aggressive, perfectly okay, perfectly legitimate, but he was absolutely not, after all he's been through in the last few weeks, with the crash on the first lap at Hockenheim, and then the appeal hearing and all that sort of stuff, and then his first lap where he dropped down to the last place, Ralf Schumacher. He was not going to give up another place for anybody.
Crucial, they did not, as we're watching Panis' Toyota stop, they did not want to be held up behind a Räikkönen getting up to speed with fuel on board, heavier fuel load. And Panis once again struggling to get away in the pits. Brand new set of Michelins on there, can't find first gear, and as ever, a box full of neutrals, just cannot get it away. They'll have to reset the electronics or something, and I don't know why they're just standing looking at it. They might as well pull him back in and have a look at it. But Montoya then, fastest man in the middle part of the lap. They both did 1:23.3s on the previous lap. Jarno Trulli hasn't yet done a complete flying lap after his stop, and Ralph in the pits. Look at that, absolutely on the ragged edge in the pit lane, let alone on the racetrack. And this could be a great chance for him to leapfrog Montoya and or Trulli.
Yes, he's got to worry about Räikkönen as well. They were all in the mix. It's going to be so very close when he comes out. So much reliance here on the mechanics. This is their chance to play a part in the afternoon. Absolute snorter of a stop by them. And Ralf Schumacher's back out on his way. So when Montoya comes in for his stop, which will be in a few laps' time, he's got to get back out in front of him.
Well, Webber made it through then, look. And he's going to beat Trulli, so he is. And meanwhile, Montoya's done the fastest lap of the race, a 1:22.6. So he too's got a great chance of leapfrogging Jarno Trulli. But where will the two Williams end up? Which one's going to end up in front of the other? That's the story now as we wait for Montoya's pit stop.
Well, Montoya had track position before this round of pit stops, and he also has the advantage of being out on the racetrack with a light car, fuel almost gone, and the tyres well rubbered in. So it's his chance to really put the advantage on. He should come out in front.
And Ralph's outlap has been compromised by a Jordan. He's lapped Jordan. It clearly must be Baumgartner because Fisichella's out of the race. So Ralph's outlap will he'll have to negotiate a back marker. Montoya pits then. He needs to be something in the early 7 seconds, and he's got a great chance of coming out in front of his teammate and Trulli. The Williams team ready then. Ted.
Well, Juan Pablo Montoya needs a really clean pit stop. Let's see if he can do if he's going to jump Jarno Trulli. The signs look good, I must say. Here we go, fuel going in, and he's away. 7.0 seconds. Is it enough? Let's see.
Both hands off the wheel then. I think that'll be enough. I really do. He's obviously got a bit of fogging as he's sweating inside the helmet there. Does he come out in front of his teammate? I think he does. We're not looking at the right piece of racetrack or the right car at the moment, sadly. But that's not what we want to be seeing. We want to be seeing where did Montoya come out of the pits as the second Jordan of the afternoon. Baumgartner, local boy, blows up.
Right in front of the Hungarian spectators in the main grandstand. So they saw the start of his race and they're seeing the end of it as well. A grandstand, if you pardon the pun, view. But we want to know what happened when Montoya came out of the pits. We'll only find out, sadly, when we pick up the pictures and when the computer shows us whichever happens first. There you can see a rather sad Eddie Jordan, his second retirement of the afternoon. There's been quite a lot of engines blowing up this weekend, haven't there? And certainly quite a lot of engines in the back of Jordan's blowing up. Fisichella lost 2 on Friday. We believe 4 in total from the Jordan team. But where is Montoya?
Montoya's done the fastest middle sector of the Grand Prix on his outlap. So Montoya, we believe, is ahead because he's still going to be behind Alonso and Räikkönen and probably Webber. At the moment, Michael Schumacher and Coulthard have not stopped for their second time at the moment. But did Montoya get out in front of Webber too?
Well, certainly the graphic there on the screen would seem to suggest that Montoya did leapfrog Mark Webber, which means if that's the case, that's a real third place. In actuality, when the whole thing shakes out, Alonso will be the leader, Räikkönen will be second, and Montoya will be third, ahead of Webber, fourth, Ralf Schumacher fifth. That's what we believe to be the championship situation, the point situation at the moment, sorry, the position situation at the moment, and we will find out very shortly if that's the case.
Yeah, you're right. Montoya is ahead of Webber. So that worked out supremely well. He put some great laps in there, some great sectors, ins and outs and flying laps. So Montoya stayed ahead of Ralf Schumacher and leapfrogged Trulli and Webber.
So really the story here, the two Williams drivers compromised off the start line. Montoya lost ground to Kimi Räikkönen crucially there, and to Michael Schumacher as well. But Montoya has been able to get in front of Michael Schumacher. He has not yet been able to get back in front of Kimi Räikkönen, and that's why the McLaren driver is in such a strong position. But nevertheless, Ralf Schumacher's drive has been remarkable. From last place, he's now very much back up in the points as Zolt Baumgartner just discusses his afternoon with his race engineer there on the timing wall. Good shot there of the Hans device, new for this season, to protect the head and neck, sitting on Baumgartner's shoulders.
Another new fastest lap by Montoya now. He really is on a charge. He's currently P5 because Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard have yet to make their second stops. But Montoya absolutely flying. He's put 4.5 seconds between himself and Webber, and he is chasing after what will be, when it all shakes out, Kimi Räikkönen in second place.
Certainly is. He's got Coulthard in front of him, who's going to be there for a while, because we saw David Coulthard putting quite a lot of fuel in his first pit stop. So McLaren trying to bring the Scotsman into play. News coming to us this weekend, announcement that McLaren fielding an unchanged driver lineup next season. David Coulthard and Kimi Räikkönen will represent the team. That puts paid to any stories that were floating around behind that. But there's still some speculation that this man Montoya may go to McLaren in 2005. Some people believe he's even signed some sort of pre-agreement. Well, time will tell. It would certainly be very early to do so, but a lot of rumours swirling around at the moment, as you can imagine, in the driver market. Nice super slow-mo of Montoya, currently in 5th place and fastest man on the racetrack.
Michael Schumacher's really got a problem on his hands this afternoon. He could end up with several cars between himself and Montoya and Räikkönen. And the championship, right now, James, the championship's looking like it's going to be super close between the three of them come the end of the afternoon.
Well, it's super close on this racetrack at the moment as well, except the gap between Alonso and Räikkönen, the leading margin, as Ralf Schumacher makes a pass on Mark Webber. This is for racing for position. 6th place they're going for. Ralf Schumacher, lovely onboard shot with him then. Didn't quite make it into his favourite overtaking place. Will he have a go here? No, but he's very close.
Yeah, they're feeling pretty feisty, aren't they, the two Williams drivers? They've got to make up some ground. Just shows you what a great chance they had to win this Grand Prix this afternoon, but they're making the best of a bad job ever since that very poor opening lap, and surely it's only a matter of time before Ralf nails that Jaguar down into turn 1. This was a good effort and good driving there. Webber left him just enough room so they didn't touch, but not enough room to pass him, and quality stuff from Mark Webber and Ralf Schumacher.
Yeah, certainly was. You could see Webber all the way down the straight, looking in his mirror, as you'd expect, looking on the left-hand side to see where Ralf Schumacher was going to make his move. As soon as he disappeared from his view, he knew he had made a move. And into the pit lane comes Michael Schumacher. This is an important stop for him. He was 9.7 seconds ahead of Coulthard, who was 5 seconds ahead of Montoya. So Michael Schumacher, there's a chance he might drop in between Ralf Schumacher and Trulli.
A long time getting the refueler in there. Seemed to be a long time, and he's saying, where's the engine, where's the engine? So something being changed in there, and a long stop, but that was not all for fuel. I still think he's got to come in again, James. There are 40 laps to go, 30 laps to go still. Will he stretch that through to the end? But they were a long time getting the refueling in, and through then comes Jarno Trulli, which you would expect.
Yes, he would have got ahead of Jarno Trulli had it not been for that stalled engine, so that's another expensive place dropped for Michael Schumacher. He would have fed back in 7th place. It's not worked out for him. It's not been working out for him, frankly, for quite a long time. Hasn't led a Grand Prix now since Canada, and we're approaching 300 racing laps now without having Michael Schumacher at the front at any stage. It's an astonishing thought.
I don't think he actually did stall the engine, did he? He was certainly waving his finger and started up, but they were quick on the starter then, if that's the case. So really disastrous afternoon for Ferrari. Barrichello out with broken rear suspension, and Michael very much on his back foot.
It seemed as though the engine actually just stopped. He was up on the jacks waving his finger around in the time-honoured fashion, meaning start my engine, and you could hear the thing firing into life, but it was not a long time before he got anywhere near dropping the clutch, isn't it?
Well, hopefully we'll see a replay of that. But Alonso leads by 25.6 seconds then from Kimi Räikkönen. 3rd place at the moment, David Coulthard yet to stop. We think he could have been the only key runner to go on to 2 stops this afternoon. I don't believe Michael did, because I think that long stop was not just for fuel. Montoya 4th, catching Coulthard. Webber 5th, Ralf Schumacher 6th, and we've seen that scrap. Jarno Trulli now 7th. Michael Schumacher critically for the championship, down in 8th.
And only 1 points paying position for him if he stays there. But what can you say about this guy? He's past half distance now, and he's driving like a dream. And a lot of heartbeats are racing at Renault. Are they going to get their first Grand Prix victory of the season? Long way to go yet.
problems as well. 4 engine failures for Jordan so far this weekend, and a pretty big one there for Justin Wilson.
Yeah, I think the Cosworth boys will have a bit of concern because Mark Webber blew an engine earlier this weekend as well, and with the engines blowing in the back of the Jordan, also built by Cosworth, and I believe that Minardi lost one as well. That's not what they wanted. Meanwhile, this is what we needed to know. Where did David Coulthard filter back in again after his pit stop? Answer, right into the middle of a dogfight between Jarno Trulli and Michael Schumacher, and that's yet more bad luck for Michael Schumacher.
It is indeed, because I believe Michael Schumacher's got a pit again, yeah, and so has Jarno Trulli, in my view. So that has worked out quite well for David Coulthard. He's certainly been brought up into play. He's not going to win the race, but he's got a chance of some solid points this afternoon. And Michael Schumacher, well, as you said, James, that's just another nail, isn't it, in there this afternoon? Because it's just, if it can go wrong, it has gone wrong for Michael today. But at least he's still running. You know him, he'll suddenly find 3 places on the last lap or something with other people's problems. But Michael then very much on his back foot.
It's amazing, isn't it? A driver who has a reputation for having such a tremendous amount of good luck. Just look back over his last couple of Grand Prix. Silverstone, he's the one who's most compromised by the man running onto the track and the safety car that followed. Very low points yield. Hockenheim, he's running second, tyre explodes, he only gets 2 points for 7th place. Real bad luck.
Here we see it, Coulthard exiting the pits after a longish stop. He's on a 2-stopper now, and he feeds straight into the middle of that fight, and in fact straight into the middle almost of Jarno Trulli's Renault. But another second there, and Coulthard would have cleared the pair of them. Here we go, we'll see from the front action. Coulthard accelerating out the pit lane, 2 cars arriving at VMAX, and they just so nearly touch. Anyway, no problems. They're out on track, and they are racing for 6th, 7th and 8th, those 3 cars. Ted is down at Ferrari.
Yes, Martin, I've been in and I've confirmed that the engine did stop on Michael Schumacher's pit stop. It happened when he was actually coming down the pit lane. He was very slow into his box. They don't know why it happened. They think it might have been something to do with the pit limiter. The car is okay now, but what happens in his final stop when he hits the limiter again? Could happen again.
He arrived at the box then, so that explains that, and explains why Michael was waving his finger around in the fashion of start my engine, but then it came to life quite quickly. But at the moment, Coulthard, with a much heavier fuel load but newer tyres, is able to very much stay in line with those other 2 cars there. And this is Ralf Schumacher having a look at Mark Webber. They're fighting for 4th place, and that'll be the 2nd time they've been into that corner side by side, but this time Schumacher makes it stick. He's certainly passed some cars in there today, hasn't he?
Yes, anybody who gave him the reputation in the past of being a bloke who's not able to overtake, he's put the lie to that today. He really got the bit between his teeth after dropping down to last place. He spun in turn 2 after a very messy start from the dirty side of the front row of the grid, and ever since then he has been a man possessed. Fantastic racing driving by Ralf Schumacher, and he is now on the track behind teammate Juan Montoya. Alonso leads Räikkönen by 25 seconds. Montoya is 14 seconds behind the McLaren of Räikkönen, and then Ralf Schumacher is about 13.5 seconds behind his teammate, and then it's Webber, Trulli, Coulthard and Michael Schumacher down in 8th place at the moment.
Now then, Ralf with some clear air. Got a long way to go to get to the back of his teammate, some 13 seconds. That's what he lost to Montoya by being not clearing that Jaguar in the pit stops as his teammate did. Trulli then 6th, Coulthard 7th, Schumacher, Michael 8th, and they're lapping in the 24s back there. And Alonso and Räikkönen doing 22.7 up at the front. So the 2 youngsters up front, cars in optimum condition, not so much fuel on board, absolutely flying. And Alonso's just been a metronome up there. He's now doing 22.5, 22.6, 22.7. No pressure, nobody anywhere near him. It's been a perfect drive from him.
Well, intriguingly, if they finish in these positions, then Montoya will be just a point behind Michael Schumacher, and Räikkönen just a point behind him as well. How close do you want it this year in the World Championship with 3 Grand Prix to go? We ride on board with the sole remaining Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. They didn't really expect all that much this weekend coming here. They knew that their tyre disadvantage, which they seem to be experiencing at the moment, versus the Michelin teams, Williams, Renault, McLaren, would be quite significant with these hot temperatures. It's 42 degrees on the track here today, but I don't think Michael Schumacher, even in his most pessimistic moments, would have fancied that he would be down in 8th place with just 22 laps to go in the Grand Prix. Never a man to give up, though, as he said yesterday. I never give up, and anything's possible when your name is Schumacher. Well, he's going to need to get his red cape on and start being Superman if he's going to get any points, significant points out of this afternoon. And his big worry is that Juan Montoya is currently in 3rd place and is trying to close down on Kimi Räikkönen, not managing it much at the moment. Meanwhile, sweeping away in his imperious way at the front is Fernando Alonso. Welcome back to Budapest. Heinz-Harald Frentzen there at the side of the racetrack. You can see just being Marshal's trying to move him. He's not in a dangerous position, but he does appear to have got a bit levelled out there. You can see car just coming to a stop. Very nearly collected Kimi Räikkönen as his car failed in one of the corners just before that. Quite a close moment for him. Meanwhile, the Renault team stopping Fernando Alonso, the race leader. 24.5 seconds he had in his pocket over Kimi Räikkönen. In he comes for his 3rd and final stop of the afternoon.
Yes, so he's got more than enough to be able to exit the pits and maintain the lead despite having stopped one more time than Räikkönen. So Alonso then 3rd and final, hopefully for him, stop of the afternoon. Everything's working well. Lightly scrubbed front tyres going on. Engine revs high and away he goes. No dramas at all. Solid and secure, and still Frentzen struggling to get that car into neutral and the steering wheel back into place. Webber's pitted then for Jaguar. Here we are on board with him. Look for a myriad of green overalls as your giveaway. There you are, your man-made garage that you hurtle into.
Well, he's been as high as 2nd in this Grand Prix, running there quite comfortably in the early stages. Then he was 3rd for quite a while, and now he was in 5th when he made that pit stop. It's been a very solid afternoon's driving for Mark Webber. It's an important stop for Michael Schumacher. He was battling with Trulli and Coulthard. No problems with the engine stopping this time.
Yeah, well, as I thought, he didn't go into a 2-stop. He's definitely... really, he is in trouble. I don't think he's going to have much of a chance of getting ahead of Trulli, and we don't think Coulthard's going to stop again. So Michael Schumacher could well be nailed down there in P8, unless there's some reliability issues, or unless he does just happen to get ahead of Jarno Trulli. And Kimi Räikkönen pits for his 3rd and final stop. Ted.
Here he goes then, Kimi Räikkönen. Is this on the way to 2nd place? It certainly looks like it. No problems with the fuel stops so far. About 60 kilos of fuel's going into this. Go to the end. Oh, it's a bit slow coming off, but there he goes. 8.2 seconds. Decent final stop.
Meanwhile, Montoya, top of the frame. Here he comes. 3rd place before he came into the pits to make this stop. Teammate Ralf Schumacher will go past him on the road, but he has yet to make his 3rd stop as well. Metronomic performance there. Once again, there is Ralf Schumacher, and you can see that Jenson Button just getting caught up there as well. Ralf Schumacher was very close to Kimi Räikkönen there, who's just rejoined after making a stop. Ralf Schumacher trying very hard to leapfrog his teammate, but he's going to need a bit of a clearer track than that if he's going to find the speed.
Yeah, I think positions 1 and 2 are fixed now, depending upon reliability or driver error. I think Ralf Schumacher's got a chance of catching Montoya if he really keeps hammering on for 3rd and 4th. And at the moment, you'd have to say, if Coulthard is 2-stopping, if we're right on that, he's got a shot at 5th. Trulli will then be, Trulli and Webber will be with Michael Schumacher fighting over the final few points.
Well, you can see Webber is shown there in 7th place, but we know that Jarno Trulli has got to make another stop again, so it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. There is your race leader, Fernando Alonso. What can you say about this young man? So calm, so cool on the grid when you spoke to him. Were you surprised by just how relaxed he seemed to be? With such huge pressure on his shoulders?
Yeah, totally. And before I was waiting to do my grid walk, I was just sort of observing him and his team, and it just seemed like a regular Sunday afternoon drive for him. Just absolutely amazing, chit-chatting away, no kind of body language that suggests stress. This is a fight on the track, but it's not really a fight for position, because these men are expecting Ralf Schumacher to stop at the end of the lap, and that'll cost him about 21-22 seconds at this stage of the Grand Prix. It'll be a very short fill, but he's not really got a chance to, and there then is Trulli for his third stop too, so it does release Coulthard nicely.
Certainly does, and critically, Michael Schumacher is behind Nick Heidfeld. He emerged behind the fellow German after that third and final stop for Michael Schumacher, so yet another thing he could have done without this afternoon. Nice stop once again from the Renault team.
And where is Michael Schumacher? I'm looking out of the window. Schumacher comes past me now. That's going to be tight, but I think Trulli's going to keep it, isn't he? He is indeed. So, yes, at the moment, Michael Schumacher's pegged to 1 World Championship point.
Well, it was close. You could see there was no Heidfeld, so we're not sure where he's got to, but he's dived into the pits. That's what the answer was. He got out of the way of Michael Schumacher at the beginning of that, at the end of that lap before. And that's why Michael Schumacher came down the pit straight on his own, and he's desperately going to try and get past Trulli now, who's out on new tyres. Unfortunately, we cut away from that. Oh, there we are. You can see Michael Schumacher having a real go. A lot of aggression here in this cockpit. Huge amount of frustration as well, I imagine.
Yeah, Michael knows he's got to do it now while Jarno's getting up to speed, finding out where he's at with these fresh tyres, heavier fuel load, and Michael knows he's got to pounce. He's the man who's had an extra lap since his pit stop. Ralf Schumacher pits then, and away he goes. He's going to have to drive like crazy if he wants to be on the podium and beat his teammate Montoya today. But the way it's all shaping up, it looks very much as if Räikkönen, Michael Schumacher and Montoya move forward as the 3 drivers for the World Championship, and their 3 teammates are going to have to help them.
It looks like way, doesn't it? He crucially got out in front of David Coulthard, though, did Ralf Schumacher, so that was important and not entirely unexpected. Here's Michael Schumacher, you see, having a real go at Jarno Trulli, trying to go around the outside of him.
Yeah, well, he was obviously trying to force Trulli into mistake. Trulli positioned his car very, very well there to block the line. That was when Michael had a run at him out of 3. That was on Trulli's outlap, and well, Michael was never going to get around the outside of him. He just would hope that Trulli would, on a dirty part of and a tighter line on the way in, go into an error somewhere and run wide. So that did not work out. Trulli kept his head and kept his position.
Yeah, well, it cost Michael Schumacher a full 3 seconds, that lap behind Jarno Trulli, who was just getting up to speed on his tyres. And the cars he's chasing after, Webber, Coulthard, just disappearing further and further away from Michael Schumacher. Interesting point you make, though, about the teammates having to help their others from now on then. If Ralf Schumacher finishes where he is, one would imagine that Williams would suggest for the remaining 3 Grand Prix that Montoya is the point man for Williams, but getting Ralf to accept that, as Patrick Head suggested yesterday, is probably going to be rather tricky.
Well, he said to me on the line he may have to Ralf Schumacher said, "I'll have to reconsider after this race," and I think if they stay like this, it'll be the reconsideration he has to give. I think the 3 of them are going to have to help out now. But the problem Ferrari have got is when Michelin are having a good day, as they quite often do these days, then Williams, McLaren and Renault can take points away from Ferrari. When Bridgestone are having a good day, Ferrari score the points, but there's nobody to back them up. And this is the problem. They've really focused in on one team, haven't they, Bridgestone? And they haven't got anybody to help out and take points away from the main competitors. And I think that's going to play a critical role in this year's World Championship.
Well, not only that, but there are a lot of people in the paddock who believe that the reason why Michelin is so strong this year is the very reason that they have 3 top teams, Williams, McLaren and Renault, all doing test and development work, particularly Williams and McLaren, whose testing mileage every year is absolutely astronomical. And those 2 have pushed the product so far forward, whereas Bridgestone are reliant on the input from the Ferrari team and its 2 test drivers, Felipe Massa and Luca Badoer. Massa, very inexperienced driver, and certainly a school of thought that that philosophy has cost them quite dear this year, with Michelin getting a clear advantage through these summer months. And we wait to see whether Monza in 3 weeks' time, and then Indianapolis and Suzuka tell the same story. A lot of people feel that Bridgestone will have the edge in the final Grand Prix, but the next 2, who knows? There's Flavio Briatore, like an expectant father, waiting for the birth of another Grand Prix victory. It's been a while for Flavio since he's been up on the top steps over the podium. And Fernando Alonso now can almost smell his first ever Grand Prix victory, which would make him the youngest ever winner in Formula One. Lap 56 of 70. Michael Schumacher still stuck behind Jarno Trulli.
And struggling to hang on, you'd have to say there. Alonso with a 23.5-second lead. The main fight I can see at the moment, because Ralph's not moving in fast enough on third-place man Montoya, but Mark Webber's beginning to home in on fifth-place man David Coulthard. They're lapping similar speeds, with the gap down to just 4.4 seconds. But clearly, the biggest fight out in the field now is Michael Schumacher and Jarno Trulli. And even just one World Championship point could be crucial for Michael Schumacher. But for the constructors, Williams are just going to leap out into the lead today, aren't they?
Yep, this is the day for Williams to get back in front of the Constructors' Championship. And that's a significant thing for everybody down at Grove and over in Munich, BMW headquarters. It's what they've wanted and worked for. They certainly hope to take at least one World Championship this year. The Constructors is looking pretty good for them at the moment, you'd have to say, with 3 races to go. The drivers, well, it's too finely balanced to call.
Here we have, I think that is going to be Chiesa in the distance, running wide in turn 3 in the Minardi. We have 13 runners, the 13th of which is Chiesa. Frentzen has stopped. Looked like an electrical problem to me. Wilson, engine. Baumgartner, engine. Panis, box full of neutrals after a pit stop. Fisichella, engine. Barrichello, rear suspension failure. And Villeneuve stopped with hydraulic problems.
Well, we're getting news from the pits that we believe that Heinz-Harald Frentzen's radio might not have been working, and in fact he didn't hear the call to come in to put some fuel in the car, so he may well have run out of fuel. That's the indication we're getting from our F1 ITV pit crew. Well, there's the Renault boys already on the pit wall. It's been a while since they've celebrated victory. Are they going to celebrate it here at Budapest? You'll find out shortly. David Coulthard has switched his strategy, driven very well indeed, and he is in 5th place.
Yep, you can see now for Alonso, he's just put his 4th lap on Chiesa, but the next 2 cars to lap are Michael Schumacher and Jarno Trulli, as you say, his teammate. So that just demonstrates to you the incredible consistency of pace that Alonso's put in this afternoon, how well his car is working. Ted is down in the pits.
Yeah, Martin, could we yet still have a fight between Juan Pablo Montoya and Kimi Räikkönen for 2nd place? Because Montoya's lapping quicker. The gap's now 9 seconds, but there are only 10 laps left. Can he do it? I think it's going to be tough, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think Räikkönen's pretty much pacing himself there. Montoya was actually a 10th slower on that as they crossed the line there, as you were talking to us, Ted. So he is moving in a little bit, but I would be very surprised if there's enough time at the moment. It's the main fight now. Coulthard's pulled away from Webber, so the main fight is still between Trulli and Michael Schumacher for 7th and 8th places, incredibly.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher has just been shown the blue flag, which means the leader is coming through. Let him through. There he is. He's about to do so. You pass too many blue flags, you get a penalty. And you can see the race leader now coming in on the back of Michael Schumacher. Not quite close enough yet to do something about him, but who would have believed it?
I would have thought those blue flags were shown very, very early, I have to say. And it seems as if Michael is now backing off and letting the leader through. That's going to put a smile on a few people's faces at Renault, and they're going to cringe on the pit wall at Ferrari. But those blue flags were very, very early there. And Michael respecting them totally, even though it's compromised him against Jarno Trulli. And that worked out very well for Renault, didn't it?
Yeah, well, if it finishes this way, Michael Schumacher is only going to take 1 World Championship point away from this Grand Prix. And you'd have to say that after the middle part of the season, which was so rich for Michael Schumacher, with wins in San Marino, Spain and Austria and Canada, the last few Grand Prix, Germany he finished 7th, Britain he was 4th. And at Europe, he was, Nürburgring, he was 5th, so it's not many points in the last few Grand Prix for him.
No, but watch this look. Truly, really did back out and let Alonso through, and it just gave Michael a chance to creep up onto his gearbox. So Michael, once again, with a chance to pounce. So Jarno Trulli needed to find a slightly more elegant way of letting his teammate through into the lead there. But Alonso just, I mean, the car's just totally hooked up, isn't it? Here is a slow-mo replay of the Ferrari bouncing its way through the final corner. And let's remember, this is a relatively untraveled, and look, that's Montoya rejoining the racetrack after a spin. Where's his teammate? His teammate's right behind him. So Montoya does not need to let Ralf Schumacher past him in for the World Championship points position. And it looks like he just got away with that.
And he'll be hoping that Ralf now is taking the attitude of, I'm the rear gunner, I'll protect the man going for the championship. There was a faint glimmer that if Ralf Schumacher had been lucky. Here's the spin for Montoya.
Well, he's lucky not to go in the gravel trap there, and a major escape for Montoya. Lost it on the way into the corner, curiously, but over the line they go then to start lap 63, and well, big escape.
Big escape. We've seen Michael Schumacher do it in the past in the closing stages of Grand Prix. Have a little moment, go off the track, get away with it. Sometimes championships are made of moments like that as well. Just that little bit of luck at a crucial moment. Montoya is on for 6 World Championship points here this afternoon, with Michael Schumacher only taking 1 away. That would mean that Montoya would be just a point behind him in the World Championship. But crucially, with Räikkönen in 2nd place here, that's 8 points for him, so he'd be tied level with Montoya.
What are we seeing here? This is the lapping, isn't it? That's the lapping of Alonso passing Michael Schumacher there. So down into turn 2, just a replay. And the leader moving away. He's still lapping in the 123s. Curiously, Trulli and Co are 24s and 25s. So he must just have a so much better setup, or his teammate's got a problem somewhere.
Yeah, I think Jarno Trulli's been unhappy with the balance throughout the weekend. Here we see it again. The blue flags were shown for Michael Schumacher. He had to get out of it, pass more than 3, and you get a penalty here in Formula 1. So he had to just reluctantly let Alonso through. Well, Michael Schumacher's seen Alonso coming. He's rated him very highly, watching him last year as the test driver for Renault. I know towards the end of last season, I was told by people in the Schumacher camp that they thought the 2 great drivers of the future were going to be Räikkönen and particularly Alonso. And this year, Alonso really has shown his promise. Ted has got news for us down Williams.
Yes, James, I can tell you, Williams have spoken to Montoya on the radio, asked him what happened. He said the rear tyres just locked up on him. They think it might have been a bad down change, perhaps, in the middle of the corner. They told him to keep pushing, only 6 laps left, get this thing to the finish.
Yes, and I don't know if he manually downshifts into some of the corners or whether it's fully automatic into all of them. But that can, if you get a bit of a dog-to-dog, as we call it, or don't get that so often these days, but maybe really Montoya very, very lucky there.
Certainly was. Means he's still in the hunt. And what about Kimi Räikkönen? We haven't really talked about him in championship terms for a little while after he was eliminated in the first corner at Hockenheim. That was an expensive loss for him. He's been in the championship hunt right since the very beginning of the season, hasn't he? The win in Malaysia. He's always been there or thereabouts. He led it for many, many races. Michael Schumacher finally managed to overhaul him in Canada, but he's always been there or thereabouts. And now, as a result of this fantastic performance today, coming through hopefully into 2nd place, he's going to be just 1 point behind Michael Schumacher, level with Montoya. About as close as you could possibly have it, really, for the World Championship.
Absolutely. Ralph's just done a 122.3. He is absolutely hauling around there. He wants to put as much pressure on Montoya as he can and try and pass him, because he knows if he doesn't, it's going to compromise him, and he's going to have to come under pressure to help Montoya in the World Championship. So Ralph absolutely not giving him any easy run to the end of the Grand Prix. The pair of them are suddenly absolutely flying, 2 seconds quicker than anybody else on that previous lap. So the 2 Williams drivers very much fighting for that final podium place, and still Michael Schumacher is looking at the gearbox of the Renault of Jarno Trulli.
5 to go then here at the Hungaroring. Alonso, Räikkönen, Montoya, Ralf Schumacher, Coulthard 5th. Webber still in 6th. Haven't seen an awful lot of him recently, but the Jaguar is going well. Looks set for another 3 World Championship points, and that'll be important in their quest to come 5th this year in the World Championship. They're struggling with the Toyota team, who are not going to score any points here this afternoon. Panis is out of the race, and D'Amata is down in 11th, but 2 laps off the pace. So another important day behind the wheel for Mark Webber and Jaguar. There's Kimi Räikkönen.
Just trying to imagine what it must feel like when you're 22 to lap 5-time world champion Michael Schumacher on your way to your first victory, hopefully for him. I remember passing sort of Niki Lauda one day and Nelson Piquet another day, and early in my career, and it gives you a great buzz when you pass these sort of household name, worldwide legends. But, you know, 22 years old, leading the Grand Prix, laps Michael Schumacher. Imagine what's going through his mind.
Nothing but joy. Pure, unadulterated joy. Still got to get to the finish, though. Looking at a super slow-mo of Kimi Räikkönen, who will in fact be at 1 point behind Montoya. The information was wrong. He will be 1 point behind Montoya in the World Championship if he stays where he is now. So Michael Schumacher, Montoya, Räikkönen, 1, 2 and 3 with just a point separating them, each of them. Alonso, he was strong at the start of the season. He had a little quiet phase, just a little dip where his teammate Jarno Trulli got the upper hand over him through the French Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix, and again 3 weeks ago at Hockenheim, but he's bounced back very strongly here and certainly put Trulli in the shade. Jarno Trulli down in 7th place at the moment, fending off Michael Schumacher to the finish.
Solid 5th place then for David Coulthard. It's certainly from his 9th on the grid. Once again, McLaren have swapped him onto a 2-stopper during the Grand Prix, and that has put him ahead of Trulli and Michael Schumacher and Mark Webber, so that worked out quite well. It's compromised his ultimate pace because he's always been carrying quite a lot of fuel, but crucially he's taking a World Championship point away from Michael Schumacher by getting ahead of him, and that helps teammate Räikkönen. Ralf Schumacher now just 0.8 of a second behind Montoya. That's the action we need to see. Mr. Director, please. He can't hear me, but I'd very much like him to be able to, because at the moment Ralf is absolutely hustling along behind Montoya. He is not going to give him a comfort zone to the end of the Grand Prix with 4 laps remaining, including this one.
Well, it's going to be an interesting position in the World Championship Constructors as well. As a result of this, Ferrari will have 121 points, Williams 129, so they will take the lead. And McLaren, good haul today for them, will mean they've got 115. They'll be just 6 behind Ferrari with 3 races to go. It's been that close this year. There you go, Martin gets his wish. And as they slide around the back marker Minardi, you can see just how close Ralf Schumacher is to the back of his teammate, ruining no doubt that spin at this very corner off the start line, which dropped Ralf Schumacher right down into last place, and it's been an amazing fight back from him.
Yeah, and they're lapping fast as well. This is no showboating to the end of the Grand Prix. Ralf busy pressing 2 different buttons on his way down to turn 4. One will be for the pre-select, probably on the downshift. Don't know what the other one's for, frankly. I know we were looking at Alonso's onboard lap from his pole, and I think much of the button pressing going on there was pre-selecting the downshifts for the next corner. They go about it in many different ways, up and down the gearboxes. And there is Alonso then. 19 seconds was his lead at the end of the previous lap. There is the battle behind him, a lap and a bit behind him.
Alonso has speeded up. He was obviously getting a little bit bored of lapping in the mid-1-minute 24s and just measuring his gap to Räikkönen. He's just picked up the pace to a low 1-minute 23, so he's obviously having fun out there. He's enjoying himself. He can almost see the flagman unfurling the checkered flag. He can almost taste that mum champagne that on the podium. It's been a remarkable season for young Fernando Alonso, and it's about to take a turn for the even more remarkable here at Budapest. Can Ralf Schumacher pressure his teammate into any sort of mistake? There's no love lost between these two. When they came together a couple of seasons back, they appeared to really hate each other, Ralf Schumacher and Juan Montoya. They've learned to coexist. They've certainly learned to respect each other. They're probably the most evenly matched pair of drivers in Formula One at the level that they race at. And it's been very good for the Williams team, the way they've driven each other on over the last couple of seasons. And Ralf just having a little dig at Montoya in the closing stages here. Alonso coming through to complete lap 69 then.
Very lonely as he enters the last lap there. It's been a lonely race, hasn't it? I mean, he romped off. He had a 15-second lead after 5 laps. And he's pretty much had nobody around him the whole race, had the comfort of an extra pit stop available to him at any time, and still not losing the lead of the Grand Prix. And Fernando Alonso then faultlessly, we haven't seen him really anywhere near a curb or anywhere near a brake lockup. He's just been, because of not been under pressure, of course, particularly either, been doing the lap times and not been cruising. They've not let him have it easy. He's certainly driven away from them at the front.
Well, he took pole. It looks like he's going to take victory. The only piece of the jigsaw, the Grand Slam, if you like, he's not going to get his fastest lap. That goes to Juan Pablo Montoya as things stand, but pretty much everything else has gone Fernando Alonso's way in the second half of this weekend. His father is an explosives expert, works in the quarries, blowing up rocks. And Fernando Alonso certainly had an explosive impact on Formula One in this, his first season with a...
Because they were a lap behind, there's really not much of a squabble on this final tour from the other players. Montoya should maintain 5th. Räikkönen has gone over the line for 2nd. And there, Montoya takes 3rd, Ralf Schumacher 4th. And a bit down the road, Coulthard will come through in a comfortable 5th place. Really a bit of an adventurous afternoon. You have to say Ralf Schumacher was pretty mighty, wasn't he, into that new turn 1. He established better and earlier than anybody else that there's a lot of grip in there, and he even overtook his brother down into that corner as David Coulthard then takes that 5th place, and Mark Webber's 14 seconds behind him for 6th.
Was an interesting little cameo there. You saw Montoya as he came across the start-finish line. He was punching the air. He was almost as happy about this result as Fernando Alonso was. He knows how enormously significant today has been for him. It was very important on a day when the Michelin tyres were again expected to have the edge over the Bridgestones that he capitalised. He has picked up 6 points. Michael Schumacher, who was leading the World Championship going into this race, has only picked up 1, and now Montoya is a point behind him, with Räikkönen, who finished 2nd today, a point behind Montoya. Fantastically well poised World Championship, and a fantastic story.
Well, there are a lot of fantastic stories. 8 winners in a season. Not since 1985 have we seen that many. And a reminder that Alonso is the youngest winner since Troy Ruttman back in 1952. Troy was 22 years and 80 days. Fernando, 22 years and 26 days. That is indeed counting the Indianapolis 500 as a Grand Prix, which it was in those days, a World Championship round. If you don't want to count the Indy 500, then throw in Bruce McLaren in 59. There are the recap results. An extraordinary race with a lot to talk about. We'll take a break, come back with more. Well, it's not often you see Michael Schumacher lapped in a race when there's not an obvious problem with his car. That man did it, Fernando Alonso, as we join them on the podium. Critical podium, this, in terms of championship points. mixed result for Renault as a team this year, Neil, and they were a very clear fourth in the Constructors' Championship going into this round. That's much clearer now, but it fits in with Flavio Briatore's prediction that they wanted to mix it with the top three at least, even if they finished fourth in the championship this year.
They did that in no uncertain terms tonight. The car just looked sensational. Curious as to why Trulli was nowhere near the pace, though, but this bloke was just on it. The car looked fantastic, and right from the start, he launched off the line and he was gone, just in a race of his own. Beautiful pit stops. All three of them were executed with perfection. And this points score story is sensational, not only for the Drivers' Championship but also for the Constructors, and I'm sure we'll go through that in more detail shortly, but it's just going to bring this championship alive with now just 3 races to go. Incredible pressure. Boy, Bridgestone are in trouble, aren't they? They really struggled out there today. You know, there was discussion pre-race that they may be okay in racing conditions, but that just proved to be not the case at all.
3 rounds to go. That has to be a big concern. Testing to resume, of course, in order to salvage this championship, and a good salvage operation from Ralf Schumacher today too, incidentally.
What about the frenzy of activity from Williams today? I mean, how many times did they have nail biters? Just a shocking start for both drivers, and they'd be very disappointed in Ralf spinning early in the game, and then that technical glitch we think with Montoya towards the end. But I should think that Patrick and Frank would not be happy with their lot this afternoon, particularly when you look at the speed of the cars with Montoya setting a faster slap.
It was a Ferrari-like performance, even though it was of their own doing. They managed to dig their way out of it a bit and still keep it open. We'll be back with more after the break. Yet another extraordinarily different podium. We've seen 8 winners in 2000.